Hello. How's everybody doing? Everybody okay? All right. It's a pleasure for me to be here today. And I'm going to talk about, this is rethinking normal, right? Did I get the theme right? Everybody okay? Are you guys awake? Who I got? Everyone there? All right, okay. It's rethinking normal. So I'm going to talk about two different things. One was kind of a personal story of how I had to rethink what I thought was normal for my career and how I kind of switched paths and decided to follow my passion and try to become an astronaut. And then I want to talk about how NASA has how to rethink the way it does its business. And I see that's my clock running right there. Right? Okay, better get going. All right, so I'm going to start with this picture, which is a picture from the first moon landing. And I was 6 years old when this happened. I remember watching Neil Armstrong take those first steps. And that really inspired me when I was a little kid to learn about space and the space program, and the astronauts were my heroes. And here's my proof. That's actually me, dressed up as an astronaut, imitating my hero, Neil Armstrong. And that wasn't even Halloween. That was like this a week after moon landing. And what you're seeing is I'm actually wearing a converted elephant costume that my mom made into an astronaut outfit. And everyone can see who I'm holding. I'm holding Snoopy with me. He's a symbol of the space program back then, and even today to some extent. I still have that Snoopy. I do not have his helmet anymore. That broke somewhere in about the 3rd grade. And his leg broke somewhere around the 5th grade. But I still have him. I took him to space with me on my second space flight. So. But that really impressed me. The whole Man on the Moon program was very impressive to me. As I grew up in Long Island, which is on the lower half of that photo, and you can see the Hudson River going up. You can see Manhattan, and there's a triangle right there, not triangle, a rectangle right there, which is Central Park. So we're like right about here in that picture, right here, right now, on the Upper West Side. I grew up on Long Island. There wasn't as much of NASA in the news as I was growing up, going through high school. I probably wasn't paying attention because I was in high school, but the moon program ended in the early 70s. I, like math and science, came to Columbia. Ta-da, here we are today, same place. And I entered Columbia in 1980. And a couple things were going on in Columbia, one of which was when I was a freshman, we launched the first Space Shuttle. And I remember very vividly, I remember the launch, I remember the landing in particular, being in McBain Hall, watching the Space Shuttle land. And that started to get me thinking again about the space program. Another thing that happened is my senior year, the movie The Right Stuff came out. And I really enjoyed this movie and watched it over and over again. But to me, what normal was, or what I was supposed to do, was get a good education, and I was very fortunate to get an education at Columbia. I'm so grateful that the school accepted me and educated me. Yeah, graduate, get a job, maybe go to grad school, raise a family, that kind of thing. That's what normal was. But I started realizing after I graduated and I started working, I was working for IBM. It was a very nice job here in Manhattan. This is back in the mid-'80s now. I started really thinking, what do I really want to do? And I kept watching the movie The Right Stuff, and I kept learning about what was going on with the shuttle program. And I thought, this is ridiculous though. How the heck am I ever how could I ever become an astronaut? That's ridiculous. Even though it's what I dreamt about when I was a little kid. And this is silly. It's impossible to become an astronaut. But I kind of came to the conclusion I needed to do something. If I couldn't become an astronaut, maybe I could work in the space program. I had to kind of rethink what I thought was normal. And I had to go home and tell my mom that I wanted to grow up to be an astronaut. I didn't need another suit like when I was 6, but this is what I wanted to do. And so what I did after 2 years of working after Columbia, I went to this place which I'm trying to show you. This is actually, can anyone guess where that is? Someone say Cape Cod, Massachusetts? Okay, good. So this is Massachusetts. Here we are in Cape Cod right there, and MIT is in the picture because that's where I went to grad school. Where you see the smoke, that's MIT. It's not clouds of smoke coming out of people's ears from thinking too hard. That's how you can tell it's MIT when you're in the air. But I went to school there, and going there was a really good idea if you want to become an astronaut because lots of people were interested in the space program. Lots of people went on to become astronauts from MIT. This was a good place for me to go. But I remember it was a big change for me from the path I was on, being an engineer, living in New York, to start taking those steps to try to pursue this dream that I had from when I was a little kid. But this was a major step. And when I was at MIT, I started to apply to the astronaut program. My first application was rejected pretty quickly. My second application was a couple years later, but was also rejected pretty quickly, I thought. And then I graduated from MIT, and I thought, well, what can I do now? I've got a really good education. Let me go and learn more about the space program. And I went down to the Johnson Space Center and took a job with McDonnell Douglas. I got sent a third application in a couple of years later, and this time I got an interview, so they really got to know me very well at NASA, and then they rejected me. So I was 0 for 3, so it's like, I don't know if this is going to work. So by this time I was married, and I had kids were coming and stuff, and I was like, well, I don't know how long I can chase this dream, but I thought about what else I might do, and I thought about becoming a college professor, which is what I did. Can anyone guess what this is? I'd be really impressed. Atlanta, you got it. That's great. I thought someone was going to say Earth. It is. That is Atlanta. I went to Georgia Tech and taught there, but I still kept applying for the astronaut program, and I was accepted when I was a professor at Georgia Tech, and we moved back to Houston, and I got to. Hang on a second. This is very sensitive. Am I the only one that's had trouble with this? No. Okay, this is not astronaut proof. Everyone else can work this except me. Okay, so I showed up at NASA back in 1996 as a new astronaut, and the shuttle program was in full swing. We were flying shuttles to fix the Hubble Space Telescope every once in a while, and we were just about to begin the construction of the International Space Station. So it was a very exciting time to join NASA. And I got a chance to fly twice on the Space Shuttle. And both times I went to the Hubble Space Telescope. And I'm going to show you some video about what it's like to eat in space, just because I like the video. So I hope you'll like it too.
That's Megan MacArthur.
So I'm interviewing Megan. Notice the hairdo. Now, like, smart people around here, when you're thinking too hard, they get that effect.
Survey of the
But that's her.
GPS, and I'm going to get my lunch. So I go to this locker here that says MS2 meals on it, and I pull it out. It shows me all the food with the green dot. That's mine, that's in here. So I looked up kind of what I want to eat. This is what I was looking for, ravioli.
Oh man, it was
Let's make it ravioli.
I just had some.
All right, now watch my buddy make a burrito in space. We got cut short on that. Let's see. Want to see it again? Yeah. Okay. You guys,
That's
okay.
Megan MacArthur.
Okay, so we'll look at Megan again. We got time for this? When does that thing in front of you blow up? It's starting to count down now. No, it's counting up, so we have a few more minutes.
I get my lunch. So I go to this locker here that says MS2 meals on it, and I pull it out. Shows me all the food with the green dot. That's mine. That's
So what she's showing, these are the lockers. She's in the mid-deck of the Space Shuttle. And she's showing all of our lockers. So we'll see. Hopefully we'll get through this. I'm going to put this down over here, just in case it was me. And we'll watch Drew make his burrito. That was not me. All right. I don't know what to say, but what it shows more. I can't describe it because I'm not in space. But he finishes the burrito and takes a bite out of it. So I think we need to move on. But you saw most of it, or at least half of it is making the burrito. But you just see how everything kind of stops. There's no moral to the story there. It's just a fun video. That's all it is.
That's Megan MacArthur.
Okay, I'm putting this down in between takes here. All right. Holy cow! Okay. Is the Wizard of Oz here somewhere? Where's the Wizard of... Please stay where you are. Can I get that time back? This is like in a debate with that clock on. You got a clock on like in the debates with the... Okay. All right, I'm over here now. Okay, this is a space picture, all right? And this is, on my missions, that's the Hubble Space Telescope in the background. On my missions, I got to spacewalk and service the telescope, which was an extraordinary experience. And there's really no way to tell you how beautiful the Earth is with words, but I'll tell you what I was feeling at this time. Most of the time I was working because I had a job to do, but there were times where I got to take glimpses. And the first time I really had a chance to look at the Earth, and we're up pretty high, we're up at about 350 miles, about 100 miles higher than the space station. We can see the curvature of the Earth from that altitude. It looks like a big ball, and it's just magnificent. And my first reaction was, this is too beautiful, you shouldn't look at it. And I actually even turned my head, I was like, I can't stand to look at it, it's too beautiful. I quickly got over that though. And I turned back and looked again, and it was so beautiful, I started to tear up a little bit. I got a bit emotional. And then I got frightened because I was afraid of introducing some water into my suit, causing a problem. And then worse than that, in the investigation, having to admit that I actually cried during the investigation. So I got myself under control, and I looked the third time, and what I thought was, if you were in heaven, this would be the view of Earth. This is what we would see. And then I thought, no, it's more beautiful than that. This is what heaven must look like. I really felt like I was looking into paradise. That's how awesome that sight of our Earth is from that altitude. It's just a beautiful sight. The reason I tell you that is because what also dawned on me was I was really glad that I rethought what I was going to do for a career back when I was a new graduate out of Columbia University. That all that work and uncertainty and moving back and forth, I never had to deal with slides jumping around on it like I just did here. But all that uncertainty of moving around or whatever it took, the hard work, the hard work at Columbia and MIT or whatever I had to go up against, taking that risk, taking that chance was worth it. And I would encourage you, if you find yourself in that type of situation where you really have a passion in life, go for it. You really have very little to lose and all the world to gain. So that's why I'm showing you that slide. I think I have a little more time, or am I? Okay, good. All right, because now I want to talk a little more about NASA. Before I do that, this is my advertisement for Columbia. You get to bring things that are meaningful to you in space, and I got to bring a Columbia shirt. But there I am on the flight deck with the Earth in the background, paying tribute to the school that set me on my journey toward becoming an astronaut. So there we are. Okay, this is the International Space Station. And that's the way it looks today. NASA, when I was young, and they were putting up people on the moon, it was a big, gigantic government project with required lots of money, a lot of effort, and it was this wonderful, great project, getting people to land on the moon. And after that was over, NASA went on to another big project, which was the Space Shuttle program. In between, we had Skylab and we had Apollo-Soyuz, which was a joint mission with the Russians, but they were kind of gearing up at the time. I was still a very young person, but at that time they were gearing up for the Space Shuttle, which launched during my freshman year at Columbia for the first time. And then as time went on with the shuttle program, it was pretty successful. It had some drawbacks, but mainly a very successful program, I think, including the building of the International Space Station. A couple interesting things about the International Space Station. One is that when NASA first started building or planning the space station back in the mid-'80s, it was primarily a U.S. project. And it was starting to cost a lot of money, and it was, people started, the leaders of our country, and were wondering, hey, is this really what we want to be doing? And it turned into an international space station. We started working with our former, I don't know if adversary is the right word, but countries we weren't so friendly with a long time ago. The Soviet Union became Russia, and we became working very closely with them, developing the International Space Station. They're very close friends of ours when it comes to working in space. We work with them very well. We also worked with the European Space Agency and with the Japanese Space Agency, with the Canadian Space Agency. It became an international program. And that was a very good thing because when it was taking some heat, the space station program was, in the early 90s when they were reevaluating how it was doing. It only passed by one vote in the Senate, or else it would have been killed. We would never have this. And the main reason why it was saved was because of those international relationships. We thought it would be really bad for the US to pull out of this big global program. And so it won its support in Congress and went on to be built with the Space Shuttle doing a lot of the work. But what happened while we were building the space station, we had our second Space Shuttle accident. First one happened back in 1986. The second one happened, I can't believe it's going to be almost 10 years, when we lost Columbia, and NASA had to rethink what they were doing with their Space Shuttle program, because if they continued to fly the shuttles, we would eventually run out of them. It was that dangerous of a vehicle to fly. It would eventually, we would keep losing them. And so we had to think about what else are we going to do here. So they decided to end the Space Shuttle program, which was a huge decision for NASA. And this is a photo of the last landing of Atlantis, the last shuttle flight we had back in July of last year. Now what we do to get to space is we're back with our friends in Russia. Not only do we operate on the space station with them, but now we fly with them. We have astronauts flying on the Russian Soyuz. Now think what a difference that was. I don't think it's a very young audience, but if you can even imagine what it was like back in the 60s when we were racing the Soviet Union to the moon, and now we are here working very closely with them and flying their spaceships. Now I've never actually been in a Soyuz. I've only flown on a shuttle. But did anyone see the Big Bang Theory last night? Yes. Okay, all right. There I am on the right. So I've been in a couple of Big Bang Theory episodes as a crew member on the Soyuz with Wolowitz. Okay, but that's me on the right, and we just returned to Earth last night, and I got right here today. The last night was our return, so I'm trying, you know, I can say I'm a real astronaut, but I also play one on TV. So I never got to fly in the Soyuz, but I did that to pretend like I was one on the, did you like it?
You're pretty much.
Well, thank you very much. So anyway, I'm trying to see if NASA will count that as a flight. I can get a flight medal out of it. I might be pushing it. But the next step after what we're looking for in the future, I think, is right around the corner now. Instead of these big government projects that have been very costly and for the country, I think very successful as well, but now they're looking at what else can we do to kind of rethink the way we're doing business in space. And one thing that NASA is doing, there's two things I want to tell you about. One of them is turning over low Earth orbit to commercial companies. And this has been a very tough decision for the space program to make. What I'm showing you here is a picture of the Dragon, SpaceX Dragon, which is a cargo ship that has successfully gone up to the International Space Station to bring up cargo. The shuttle not only brought up astronauts, but it also brought up all of our stuff. When we lost the Space Shuttle, we lost the capability to not only fly people, but to fly all of our stuff, our food, our equipment, our experiments, our clothing, everything. This at least gives the US capability, along with the other capabilities that other countries have, to fly cargo up to the space station. NASA is helping these people a lot, but it is primarily a commercial endeavor. People trying to make money by launching spaceships into space. In this case, they're starting out with cargo, but hopefully it's not going to be too much longer until we start launching people as well. What NASA is going to be concentrating on is building another big rocket and a spaceship that can go beyond low Earth orbit, turn low Earth orbit over to the commercial companies, and let's go back to the moon or onto Mars or an asteroid. So that's where NASA is starting to concentrate. And I'm going to end with the moon. We began with a picture of the moon. I want to end with that as well. As I speak at different places, I meet people around the country. A lot of the mood is, NASA has closed down since we don't have a space shuttle program anymore. And I think about that, and that's not true, and it's also really kind of a sad thing to think about. I mean, when I was a little boy, I got to see people walk on the moon. That program was over when I grew up, but I was able to participate in the space shuttle program. So I think for you young people in the audience, even though the space shuttle program was magnificent, it is done. They're putting it, I just saw the Enterprise in the Intrepid Museum. Endeavor's going down the streets of California this week. They're not going to launch them anymore, even though I'm in a bit of a denial. We're not launching the shuttle anymore. We have to move on. But I think the future is very bright, particularly with these commercial companies that are looking for ways to make money in space. NASA hopefully will be able to continue to get enough funding to go beyond low Earth orbit. And I think there's a lot of exciting things that are going to be happening that you future astronauts and space engineers sitting in the audience can look forward to. I know I'm out of time by now. Thank you very much.